So I'm continuing on today with what is known as the great work. The great work is informing people as to how they have gotten into the situation where they're being controlled by dark powers. Okay, governments are basically dark powers, religion is dark powers, and these powers have completely usurped the rights of individuals under natural law. So I'm going to continue on with that thought or that topic, okay? And we're going to look at, okay, the human condition, and we're going to look at man's mind, man's consciousness. In other words, we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty about what makes things tick, okay? Why mankind has ignored natural law, what is the reason for it, how he has let himself get ensnared by man's law, not natural law, and why mankind seems to be so dumbed down that he can't pull himself out of this mire that he has gotten himself into. Basically, what it amounts to is the condition of men's consciousness or their mind, and how open they are to receive new information or knowledge. And so I'm gonna go over a little bit of that today and try to establish another leg by using this video or another chapter. I want to thank Mark Passio, by the way, for these slides that I am using. And again, I might mention that he has a complete seminar, which is 9 hours long, which features these slides. And so I'm trying to do a condensed version here so that you can kind of get an idea. If you don't want to go watch the 9-hour long seminar, which I recommend that you do, but I'm just doing this so that for those who procrastinate, and for those who say, oh, I don't have that much time to spend, I'm doing a little bit shorter version here. So let's look at why, and I'm going to use the slides again. Let's look at why mankind is in this situation, and some of it has to do with teachability, okay? An individual's teachability, or their ability to learn by way of being taught by someone else. And this is extremely dependent on the open-mindedness or the closed-mindedness of the individual being taught. Because low teachability derives from arrogance, and we see a lot of that today, rigid skepticism, but also from naivete and gullibility. Gullibility is a big one, and so is naivete. High teachability derives from a balance, okay, between healthy skepticism and an open mind, or I should say, open-minded willingness to learn and change. This is a bell curve here. It's kind of like a graph, and so right here we have the best position to learn, which would be in the high part of this bell right here. These being the poor positions to learn. And you can see that if you're arrogant, cynical, skeptical, gullible, or naive, you're not going to be really too open to being taught. So you got to be in this center here, teacher-student, open to learn, that type of thing. When being taught, you want to consider the sources of information. I'm going to read this here. By refusing to present certain information and by influencing people to dismiss certain information as unimportant or unnecessary to consider, Many modern institutions seek to control human perceptions and therefore to limit what human beings may come to understand. Very true. Very true. And these institutions are all the institutions that we're familiar with in society, like schools, political institutions, government institutions. They don't want you to know certain things, and they want to control your perceptions. This is a slide of some of these institutions. You got the political institutions, okay. You got all kinds of religious institutions that want you to believe their way. Belief, okay. Belief and truth and perception of truth are two different things. Then you got scientism, and you got here now. I'm not gonna be down on this. I'm really into meditation, but if you meditate and think that things are going to change by themselves, that's probably the situation you want to avoid, is thinking that. So these are ways that you can be misled, okay? And the new age movement is a way to be misled, just like all religions. So these are basically, all of these are religions, okay? They're belief systems and religions. Requirements and the role of knowledge. People that are out there, and a lot of people are out there sighing and crying and saying things are bad, they need to be changed. They want certain conditions to be present for themselves and their species as a whole, such as happiness, health, peace, freedom, prosperity, and so forth. However, specific requirements exist in order for human beings to obtain those conditions. And if the requirements aren't there, then these conditions are not going to manifest. They're not going to manifest in your life. So you have to know what these conditions are and how to manifest. Since human beings as a species do not already have the things that they want, it follows logically that the knowledge of the requirements to obtaining the things that they say they want either must be absent, or if it's present, that the knowledge is willfully being ignored. So as long as that knowledge continues to remain unknown or ignored, the manifestation of the desired conditions won't happen. It'll be impossible. So some of this knowledge is occult knowledge, which I touched upon in my last video. Occult meaning hidden. That's all it means, people. Occult means hidden. Not a big scary thing that people think that you have to steer clear of. The word occult is derived from a Latin adjective, occultus, hidden, which comes from the Latin verb occultare, to hide, to conceal, to keep secret. And this is how the masses are kept in ignorance, because they don't have the knowledge. They don't have the knowledge that the few at the top do, the few people that are controlling, and I'll say relatively few in comparison to the billions of people on Earth. Relatively few are controlling them with this hidden knowledge. So occult knowledge constitutes both the knowledge of human consciousness and how it operates, and the knowledge of natural law, which is very important. Natural law, again, is the unseen universal spiritual laws which govern the consequences of human behavior. Such knowledge is not commonly known because it has been deliberately hidden in order to create and maintain a power differential. This is a very interesting point right here. Power differential between those who hold that information and those who are ignorant of it. So you have this huge gap here, which is called a power differential, where the ones at the top have the power because they know this hidden knowledge, while the ones at the bottom are totally ignorant of it, and that's why they are controlled by the ones at the top. The knowledge of natural law and its operations constitutes the most deeply occulted information on earth. In other words, the most deeply hidden, which the powers to be seek to keep hidden from the people of the earth at all costs, because understanding it would level the playing field and put an end to the currently entrenched systems of control. I covered some of this in my last video, so yes, some of it is repetitive, but I thought I would just repeat it instead of you having to go back and watch my last video. Nescience versus ignorance. Nescience, from the Latin verb necessare, to not know because knowledge was absent or unattainable. In other words, if the knowledge isn't there, you can't know it. But if the knowledge is there, to not know, even though necessary information is present, because that information has been willfully refused or disregarded. So it's been ignored. So you might say this could be ignorance rather than ignorance. Same thing, just a clearer meaning. Picture of the dumbed down masses out there taking a nap permanently through life. Picture of the Statue of Liberty crying because of liberty actually means freedom. It also means book, which is interesting, because if you read books, you gain knowledge and you get freedom. Libre, or liberty. It's been lost, people. And these goons here will make sure that nobody asks questions, and they're here to follow orders, okay, from the powers to be to keep people in line. We live in a police state, and again, it's because of our lack of our true understanding of natural law. The world has become a prison that we all live in, because that prison is overseen by the powers to be and their attack dogs, the order followers. The keys to getting out of this prison are being able to understand knowledge, seeking knowledge, finding out knowledge that has been hidden from you. The first step is getting out of denial, because most people that are living out in society stick their heads in the sand and are in complete denial of the factors that are causing them misery, and they're in complete denial of how they got there, and they're in complete denial of how to get out of it. So the way you get out of it is you take these steps to solving problems. And first you have to recognize there is a problem. Fear-based denial of the problem must first be dealt with and conquered. So a lot of people are afraid to look at the reality of things, or the reality of why they are in the situation they're in, with regards to being enslaved by government, particularly. The symptoms are merely the effects, the slavery, all of the chaos and control that we see are here because of the cause. Okay, you have to look at the cause. So knowledge is required to make an accurate diagnosis and take the required action necessary to rectify these factors, which led to the manifestation of the problem in the first place. In order to do this, you have to realize what truth is, okay? Truth is something that has kind of vanished in this day and age. Very hard to obtain truth. Truth is objective, meaning that it is not based on perceptions of human beings, which is capable of wavering back and forth. And they use this continually. They actually cause people's perception to waver with all the disinfo and mind control that is out there. Truth simply is that which is. It is that which has occurred in the past and that which is occurring in the present, that which is. Truth is truth, people. So let's talk about perception. Truth versus perception. Now, the white line here is going to represent truth, okay? And this sine wave here, okay, is a frequency, like a radio frequency. And this is a low frequency because you have these big valleys and mountains here. And it intersects with truth, which is the white line, not too often. Okay, so a low frequency, people are going to not really realize the truth. It's going to be elusive. But here, as they raise their consciousness or their frequency, and I've talked about this in previous videos, it's going to intersect this line much, much more frequently. And then as you raise your consciousness even more, it's going to intersect the line even more so that it's almost continuous, and you will be able to perceive truth more readily. So in order to understand something, you have to know the exact meaning of certain words, an exact statement or description of the nature, scope, or meaning of something. You have to have clarity. So in order to get this clarity, certain words and ideas have to be defined. When we talk about natural law, and again, this is something I've gone over in the past, natural law is inherent. It's based in nature, reality, and truth. Remember, truth is truth, people. Not made up or caused by humankind. A lot of stuff you see nowadays is made up. In fact, most of the stuff is made up. It's an illusion. It's perpetrated by the media and by sources that are not pure as far as getting the right information. Law is an existing condition which is binding and immutable and cannot be changed. Natural law, okay, cannot be changed. It's immutable. Natural law, universal, non-man-made, binding, and immutable conditions that govern the consequences of behavior. Natural law is a body of universal spiritual laws which act as the governing dynamics of consciousness. Very important, governing dynamics of consciousness, okay? So belief is completely irrelevant when it comes to the existence and operation of natural law, just as it is irrelevant in relation to any of the other laws of nature. The laws are going to be there and they're going to function, and they're immutable, such as gravity, inertia, momentum, thermodynamics, or electromagnetism. Similar to such other phenomena of nature, the workings of natural law require no belief in order for them to be discovered and known. Belief is irrelevant. Here's a nice quote. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what is not true, and the other is to refuse to accept what is true, which is what we see a lot in today's society. So in order for us to realize how people have been brainwashed and how we have been brainwashed, and maybe the conditions of our consciousness that have led us to accept certain things, and the conditions of the consciousness of the people that are the powers to be, what makes them tick, we're going to look at consciousness in the brain. Consciousness is the ability of a being to recognize patterns and meaning with respect to events taking place both within oneself and in the realm in which the self exists and operates. Now here's a little bit of that hidden knowledge that I was speaking of earlier. Hidden meaning occult, hidden. Things that they keep from you that they don't want people to know, maybe the inner workings. So here we have a diagram, okay? And this diagram shows you the body with the triangle facing up, and that's called the blade or masculine principle. And the spirit, which is the feminine principle, and this is like a chalice, okay? So in this diagram here, the triangular diagram, it shows what is called a trinity. And the trinity is evident in all kinds of religious beliefs and mystery traditions. But here it's something that is within, shown as something being within the mind. Thoughts are the father, okay? The emotions, okay, are the feminine, which is the one who receives or the one who bears the child, okay? So thoughts are how you create, okay? Thoughts are the creative source, okay, or the impregnating source for the feminine emotion, okay, emotions, okay, so thoughts through emotions produce actions, because thoughts and emotions produce wisdom, and wisdom is the way to take action, okay, which is not being done in this world that we can see. I mean, not in the sense of getting us out of the mess that we're in, people raising their consciousness. So in order for this to be understood a little bit better, we have to look at brain structure and behavior. Brain health plays a critical role in human behavior, so it is extremely important for human beings to become familiar with the brain's basic structure and function. And this is very interesting because it's very revealing, and this is all hidden knowledge, knowledge that people have to dig for. And this is knowledge that the powers to be have and use against you. So it's good for you to know these things so that you can combat what's happening to you as a person. Three main complexes comprise the human brain. The R complex, very interesting, the reptilian brain, which facilitates basic survival functions, kind of like the fight or flight syndrome. The limbic system is the mammalian brain, okay, which facilitates human emotion, and the neocortex, which facilitates higher thought functions and conscience. So here we have a picture, and this is the reptilian brain here, which is more at the base of the neck, down here. The mammalian brain, the limbic brain, is up in here where the pineal gland is, which is right there. And the human brain, neocortex, higher order of thinking, is up here, all right? Just remember this reptilian brain, because this seems to manifest itself. And even the commentator and author David Icke, or Ike, however you want to pronounce it, has talked many, many times about the reptilian component. People thinking he was maybe a bit off, but actually he was right on when he was talking about this reptilian component in these people that are evil, and I will show you how that manifests. Okay, so here you have the human brain. Left is the left brain. I'm sure you've heard left brain, right brain. Okay, so the left is intellect, masculine, with this, the blade pointing up, logic, analytical thought, science, and math. Intuition is the feminine, creativity, holistic thought, compassion, which is a right brain function. The neocortex of the brain is two hemispheres, the left brain hemisphere, which facilitates logical and scientific thought, while the right brain hemisphere largely facilitates creativity and compassion. When both of these are in balance, the neocortex acts in its proper role as the executive command center of the human brain, and true intelligence, which is intellect and creativity, is born. In other words, you have to be using both of these sides of your brain, and they have to be in balance. This is what happens if a human being's left brain hemisphere becomes chronically dominant. Then that R complex, that reptilian brain, okay, will take over executive function of the brain, and the person will become ruled by selfishness and base desires. Does that sound familiar, people? That should, because it's the people that develop a personality based in domination and control, which is what the problem is here with this society, right? Domination and control. So where are these people coming from? Probably left brain domination, left brain hemisphere being dominant. So if you're all right brain, then the human being's right brain hemisphere becomes chronically dominant. The limbic system takes over, okay? Not the reptilian, but the limbic will take over executive function of the brain, and the person will become ruled by their own emotions and develop a personality based in submissiveness and being naive, okay? And here's the rub. It's called the schism. And that is, this is about mind control here, which is being done to people daily, hourly, all the time, can lead to intellect, just this side, can lead to rigid skepticism, scientism, atheism, solipsism, moral relativism, social Darwinism, eugenics, authoritarianism. If this is dominant, this side of the brain. And this is what they do. They manipulate people, okay, to either be one way or the other, but not balanced, okay? So here you have the right brain, when they control your mind to just be right brain, it can lead to naivete, blind belief, religious extremism, solipsism, unworthiness, self-loathing, order followers like cops. They follow into this category here, willing slave, that type of thing. So this is how they use mind control to either have you be completely left or completely right brain. And with that same looking at the brain even more, okay, the left brain is what is known, has the qualities of randomness, okay, randomness, and then the right brain has the qualities of determinism. So randomness is that the universe is a grand accident, okay? There is no creator, therefore there is no underlying intelligence in nature, which is just absurd. There is no such thing as spiritual, moral, natural law, another absurdity. Experience has no purpose other than to continue to exist. Hallmarks of scientism are atheism and totalitarianism. Then over here we have determinism. God controls every event in creation. All occurrences are preordained. Free will is an illusion and does not exist. Since God controls everything, change is impossible. Action is ultimately meaningless. Hallmarks of religious extremism and slave think, okay? So what you really want to have, okay, is a balance. When you're using both sides, or both sides of the brain are integrated, then you have what you call, this is where truth is, okay? This is where you find natural law and free will. And so natural law would be a healthy deterministic component, and free will would be a healthy random component. So you need these two things to be balanced and to acquire knowledge and understanding of truth and natural law. Nature versus nurture. So what is it? What is human nature? Is it evil or is it good? Human nature is neither inherently good nor inherently evil. Instead, we should consider the operating conditions or the environment in which human beings exist, which influences behavior to a great extent, thus creating the current human condition. Human nature is programmable, okay, much like a computer. Not that we are computers, although the brain is probably the most magnificent type computer that you could ever imagine, and it is programmable. So let's look at what this could lead to. So we're talking about the human condition here. Human beings are programmable, much like computers. Like a computer, if a human being has a bad file system format, conditions during a child's formative years, a bad operating system, culture, the culture we live in, and bad software programs, erroneous, rigid, and dogmatic beliefs, their output behavior onto the screen of life will also be bad and will contribute to deteriorating conditions on a mass scale. Like a computer, the behavior of a human being will largely depend upon its program or programming and the quality of the information put into it, which enables it to process and create efficiently. So if garbage goes in, garbage goes out. If quality is in, then quality is out. Now we're going to look at here how our reality is built, okay? It's a building block type situation. You have knowledge, which leads to understanding, which leads to wisdom, which leads to a generated result, okay? Very simple. You get knowledge here, processed and understood, acted upon by individuals, knowledge. You make a decision. These processes take place in the human mind and are chosen by each individual based on available information being the key word, knowledge, that will contribute to the human behavior. Each individual's behavior is based upon the quality of their decision-making processes, which in turn are based upon the quality of their available information. Again, this gets back to information and knowledge being hidden from us. Then it is manifested as a reality, okay, upon the aggregate quality of human behavior within that society. So you can see here, if you don't have knowledge, you're not going to have understanding, you're not going to have wisdom, and the generated result is going to be out of control, order, or chaos. Basically, what I should have said, or should say, is there will be no order, but there will be chaos. So let's go back and look at the principles from the Latin principia, first, foremost, leading, chief, most necessary, the first things, that which is most important. General principles, most important, of natural law. Natural law is expressed through 7 basic underlying principles, plus an 8th, which binds all the other 7 together. These principles constitute a master key through which universal wisdom, including the knowledge of the requirements to obtaining what we desire, is unveiled or de-occulted or de-hidden or not hidden any longer. So we have some of these principles here. And these principles are the same thing that you will find in the teachings of Hermes, or the Hermetic principles, which are very, very useful, and also have been hidden or occulted. The principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. Okay? That's what makes up natural law, the principles of natural law. So mentalism, the all is mind. The universe is mental. Thoughts lead to the manifestation of things and events. Thoughts create our state of existence and the quality of our experience here on Earth. Therefore, you have to be responsible for everything you create by being responsible for everything that you think. Correspondence. That which is above is like to that which is below. That which is below is like to that which is above, like the reflection here. The macrocosm, the very large, the totality, and the microcosm, the very small, individual units, which comprise the whole, are reflections of each other. The universe is holographic. It is self-similar across all scales. And for those who don't know what holographic is, if you have a holographic picture, and I'm sure you've seen them, if you cut that picture up into 10 pieces, each little picture piece is going to have the whole picture in it. So it is self-similar across all scales. Vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. And I've said this before in some of my previous videos. It's all about energy. It's all about energy. Everything is energy. Everything vibrates at the most fundamental level. The universe and everything which comprises it is pure vibratory energy, manifesting itself in different ways. The universe has no solidity as such. Matter is merely energy in a state of vibration. Polarity. Everything is dual, like yin and yang. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All paradoxes must be reconciled. Rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. Every cause has its effect, cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law, natural law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. Cause and effect, plane of effects. Physical world. This is where manifested realities have formed due to their underlying causes. The plane of effects constitutes that which has already occurred. As such, no power to effect change lies here, because that which has already occurred cannot unoccur. It has become that which is truth. So they can't make truth not truth, basically, is what this is saying. Human consciousness seems to be trapped upon the plane of effects, meaning that humanity as a whole remains ignorant, here's that word ignore, because they have ignored knowledge, of the underlying causes which they themselves set into motion. And that's why society is like it is because somewhere along the line something was set into motion, and which lead to self-inflicted suffering in their lives. Plane of causality, mental world. This is where causes are set into motion prior to manifesting as form realities. This plane of causality constitutes the causal factors, the why, which underline and precede all manifested things and events. All power to effect change lies on this plane. Human consciousness must move from the plane of effects to the plane of causality in order for human beings to understand the causal factors of the conditions which they are collectively manifesting in their lives. Only then will humanity be able to co-create their shared reality on a conscious level rather than on an unconscious one. Summing it up, plane of causality, mental world, the why. All power to effect change lies here, thus this is where human consciousness must go. Plane of effects, physical world, manifested reality. No power to effect change lies here, but this is where human consciousness is trapped. Gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine, just like the sides of the brain, okay, the left side and the right side. Principles. Gender manifests on all planes. Gender. Mental gender is the state of coexistence between masculine and feminine aspects of the human mind. Our left brain hemisphere largely facilitates the masculine aspect of the mind or intellect. Logical, analytical, and linear thought processes, while the right brain hemisphere largely facilitates the feminine aspect, or intuition, creative, compassionate, and holistic thought processes. Let's look at the lost principle now. The eighth principle. Again, the eighth or lost principle is a complete circle encompassing all the other principles that I just mentioned, mentalism and so forth. The eighth principle is the generative principle. Care. Caring. Care. The lost principle is the dynamic of care. What we care about on a day-to-day basis acts as the driving force of our thoughts and actions. Therefore, care can be seen as the ultimate generator of the quality of our experience. This principle has been often referred to as the generative principle. The word generative is derived from the Latin verb generare, which means to create. What we care enough about to put our will behind is ultimately what gets created in our world. The world is the way it is because most people do not care, even if they say they want things to be different, to change it through their actions. So I think that that's enough for this video. It's getting rather lengthy here, and then I will continue on in my next video. So this will probably be called The Great Work Part 2. Okay. How it works, okay, how it all works. And this is basically what I'm trying to get across to people here, is how consciousness works, how knowledge has been withheld from us so that our consciousness cannot work properly. And this has been done since day one. These occultists, these dark occultists who knew all the natural laws and who know how what I'm presenting here, which is occult information, they know it, they have known it, and they use it to their advantage, okay? They use it for to brainwash people, to have mind control over people, to have massive mind control. And so that's why we're looking at this stuff, people. We're looking at it to be unenslaved, okay, to get out of this mess. So the only way that you can get out of the mess is to know what they know, to be a warrior, to be a information warrior, a knowledge warrior, a warrior of, let's say, the great work, okay? And the great work is informing, is waking people up. And so that's why I created this channel, and that's why I created this video, so that I can take a healthy part in informing people of what they need to know, to at least give them the knowledge to understand why the situation is, because many may not know. And then that from there, that in itself is a bit of a freedom, okay? when you can get enough information to know that the knowledge that you have been given is mostly lies, then you can start operating on information that isn't lies, and you can start operating from a place of truth. So thank you for listening to this video, and stay tuned for the next video coming up shortly. On that note, I'll just say thank you, adios, and until next time.